And for more tonight, I'm joined now by retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. He's the former commanding general of the U.S. Army here in Europe. It's good to see you again this evening. There's a lot to talk about tonight. I want to start with what the Russian president didn't say today. He surprised a lot of people by not declaring any kind of victory in Ukraine and not moving Russia to a war footing with a full military mobilization. What's your read on that?
No, Brent, that's a good observation. I mean, there were several things that were missing from what so many people had expected to hear or see today. First of all, there was no oomph. I mean, it was a lack of enthusiasm. It was, there was stuff there, but it didn't have the feel of a nation that is winning in a major conflict with such high stakes as the president described them. And it also didn't have the feel that they were getting ready to really launch into something. You didn't feel any momentum coming out of it. It was smaller, frankly, than usual. Not as much hardware. The flyover was supposedly canceled because of weather. I would defer to them, but we'll see. No declaration of victory. No declaration of war, no escalation, and not even a call to general mobilization. So no call to arms, if you will. The whole focus was on connecting Russian people, trying to legitimize what they're doing in Ukraine by connecting it to what happened in 1945. And I think it was not that big a deal.
We know that Western intelligence sources were briefing that Mr. Putin had told his generals to produce a victory for him by today, by May 9th. Is the lack of a victory claim, is it a sign that the Russian military is failing, or have Western intelligence agencies been somewhat off the mark here?
No, actually, I would say that our intelligence has been very good going back to before 24th February, remarkably accurate. And I also liked the way that we have shared it publicly on certain things, which really got the Kremlin on the back foot. That was important. I think the problem for the Russians is that they have no victory to celebrate. I mean, every single thing that they have tried to do has generally failed. Even Mariupol, which should have been gone in the first week, you still have these incredibly tough Ukrainian troops that are still holding out. And I think these guys are going to be compared to the 300 Spartans for a long time. And so there was not something that the Russians could really put a flag in.
And, we seem here in the West to have been surprised by the lack of the Russian military's ability to move quickly when the invasion began. They couldn't take Kyiv. Now there are reports coming out that inside Russia, that the military is having trouble convincing, particularly young men, to enlist. How serious of a threat to, I guess, the viability of the Russian military do you see that being?
Yeah, that's a great point. They have a serious manpower problem. First of all, the population of Russia, about 140 million, so not a large population for such a huge country. They have generally avoided conscripting any soldiers from Moscow or St. Petersburg. So the two main population centers actually are not proportionally represented in the armed forces, in the ranks. There are reports that not only are soldiers who are deployed are beginning to disobey orders or refusing orders, but also people, even traditionally, do not show up 100% for conscription date. And I think this is part of the reason why we did not see a call for general mobilization, because it would be humiliating to have large percentages of Russians who supposedly are so supportive of what the Kremlin is doing to not report for mobilization. Instead, with the office that runs mobilization for the Russian Ministry of Defense sent out an invite, would anybody like to do this? So they're having some serious manpower problems. And I really have to say, I'm surprised that Minister Shoigu still has his job and his head. He's been the Minister of Defense now for almost 8 years, so he sort of presides over this whole thing. And
well, you say you're surprised. You say you're
the,
surprised, though. What do you think it means? I mean, we've seen some public, dress downing of intelligence officials in Russia, but I mean, Vladimir Putin, he needs the generals. He needs the military on his side. He knows that's the nature of an authoritarian state. So, I mean, how stable is everything inside when you consider that, no heads have been rolling?
Yeah, that's a good point. Shoigu's there, but I didn't see General Gerasimov today.
Yeah.
He clearly, General Gerasimov, the chief of the general staff, would typically have been there. Featured prominently, camera had a role. Instead, Shoigu, who is the defense minister, played the senior military commander kind of role today. Now, I don't know. I've been looking at speculation all day about why Gerasimov was not there. Some people think he was wounded in an attack several days ago when he was visiting one of the headquarters. Some people think he's, maybe he's just really busy. And then some have speculated that maybe he's being pushed aside. I didn't see Lavrov either. Foreign Minister Lavrov was not featured in any of the things. So maybe Shoigu is still there because he got rid of Gerasimov. I don't know. I shouldn't even speculate. But this is something that we always did in the Cold War, was watch who's up there on the Politburo. Who's standing next to the Secretary General of the Communist Party on these big events, who's standing close. So that's what I was doing today, was trying to figure out who was there and who wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's like ghosts of the Soviet Union on display on Red Square again today. General Ben Hodges, as always, General, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for the privilege.